everyone, join me, Megan Rinks.
And me, Melissa DeMonts, for Don't Blame Me, But Am I Wrong?
Each week, we deliver 4 fun-filled shows.
In Don't Blame Me, we tackle our listeners' dilemmas with hilariously honest advice.
Then we have But Am I Wrong, which is for the listeners that didn't take our advice. Plus, we share our hot takes on current events.
Then tune in to See You Next Tuesday for our listener poll results from But Am I Wrong?
And finally, wrap up your week with Fisting Friday, where we catch up and talk all things pop culture.
Listen to Don't Blame Me, But Am I Wrong on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Welcome to Consciously Cannabis. I'm Carly, host of Consciously Clueless, the podcast bringing you this series. Together with guests, I'll be exploring cannabis through lenses of sustainability, mindfulness, and plant-based living. Bonus content from Consciously Cannabis will be available at patreon.com/consciouslycarly. Take a hit, or don't, all are welcome here, and let's get lit. Well, thank you, Christina. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think the last couple of weeks have been good, but quite a bit of change. And so it's always good to take a step back. And when you talk about the company and sort of your values and what you're trying to do, it helps you reset and stay connected to mission. So it's good to be talking to you too, Carly.
That's a good thought. I appreciate that, how sometimes maybe in those moments where everything feels really out of control, almost coming back to that foundation, that mission, that vision, like the why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And having to say it or talk about it, just it drives it home for you. So it's good to be here too, because it's an exercise for me.
I'm excited to have you on the Consciously Cannabis series, and I want to hear about a lot of the work you've done in that space in various ways. But I also like to hear from people of what's your personal history with cannabis, what maybe brought you to the plant, or what brings you there now, or anything you want to share about that relationship.
Sure. I think I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I can honestly say that as a youth, I was not a cannabis user. There were a lot of them around me. Primarily, I would say that friends and family all the way through college used around me, but it was just never something that I got into. It really wasn't until adulthood, I'd say, 30s,
Mm.
that I started to experiment with the plant and its different modalities. I would say my journey into cannabis really as an explorer began when I started the company. It was less of a sort of, I'm using this plant and then organically I want to go into business. It was actually the opposite way around, and had started going into business and then really started exploring the plant, and in particular, the medicinal benefits and wellness that the plant can bring to its users. I don't know where to begin, but that's my origin point, Carly. I can dig into either, going into what it was like in starting the business and then how I started experiment, or what my first use experiments look like when I was younger. But I'm happy to go either direction.
Let's keep the timeline. So let's talk about maybe some of those first experiences when you were younger and then get into the business.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when I was in college, my boyfriend, my college boyfriend, who was an athlete, ended up being a professional football player in the NFL. He was a heavy user, like heavy in terms of consistency, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in dosing, but a pretty consistent user, smoke in the mornings, light smoking in the mornings, light in the afternoon, not really before practice, but before he went to bed as well. And I was hyper aware of sort of the effects of the plant, and certainly some of the strains that he used were like for pain management and stress more than anything else. He really used it to relax. And I would say the first time I ever tried it was with him, and it was an absolute disaster, Carly. Oh my God, absolute disaster. And I tried to smoke. I did a shotgun. And that was such a bad decision. And I had never tried it before. I got
Damn.
so sick, like projectile vomiting. I ended up, yeah, trying it again and had to go to the hospital both times, by the way. So the first time I ended up doing shotgun with him, I tried it. I got super crazy woozy. I thought that, you know, Jesus and the devil were arguing in my head
Oh
over
no.
yeah. Oh, I know it was so serious, Carly. I don't know what was in that. Everybody, jokes about it having been laced. It wasn't. It was a really sort of psychedelic experience, actually.
Yeah.
And it was really deep and it lasted for a long time, but I got very physically ill. And so I tried it again, I think maybe a year or so later with edibles
Mm.
and used some edible products that were cookies, actually, that a friend had brought me from California. And that also ended up with me vomiting everywhere and getting super sick. And I think at that time, my kind of net was big takeaway. This is not for me. My body is hyperbolically reacting to
Right.
this substance, which I rarely ever use or have never used before those two times, but would then eventually go on to use more frequently as an adult, right? But at that time, the effects were not good for me at all. Absolutely a no go, no bueno. And I was like, I don't want to keep trying this. And what I came to learn was that some of the cannabinoids in the plant just don't really work very well for my system. And so I'm really now more mindful of dose
Mm.
testing, where I'm buying from, who I'm buying from, obviously, and being much more intentional with how I use and what I'm using when I do use. So those are my early experiences, Carly. Not fun, but good life lessons.
I'm surprised you
The,
went back again, right? I mean, I
like
guess,
for a third time.
yeah, I guess I think when I was thinking you were saying how sick you were, I was like, oh,
So
I,
sick.
I don't drink alcohol anymore, but
Yeah.
I did for a while and I got sick all the time and I kept going back.
Yeah.
So I
No.
suppose there is a normalization of that.
I think it's hard for me to say what I was thinking when I went and tried again.
Hmm.
I do not smoke at all. That's just I think that is not a method that works for me and not one that I want to try again. I tried it a second time as an adult after the first time when I was in my 20s and I realized it's just not for me. I got sick then.
Yeah.
But with edibles and certainly topicals, even the transdermal patches, suppositories, everything else worked for me. I wouldn't say everything. I don't do tinctures. There are a lot of things that I don't do, but edibles, topicals, suppositories again, and transdermals have been great. And so I've
Hmm.
just stuck to those. But I think after the first two bad experiences, I think I chalked it up to just maybe bad product. And so the third time as an adult, I was like, all right, let's be really careful about what we're going to do here. Like I
Yeah.
bought it from a dispensary that was licensed, the products have been tested. I definitely adhere to and promote the go low, go slow approach.
Mm.
And so start off with micro dosing and very small amounts of THC in the product, and then evolving from there into something that sort of suits the effect that you're going for or the treatment plan if it's for medicinal purposes that you're trying to adhere to. I think everybody is different, but certainly the go low, go slow is an approach that everybody should start out with if they're newbies to the plant.
Oh, I think that's great advice because you just don't know what your body's reaction will be to different things. And it's better to gauge it in a way where you can feel safe to do versus
Yeah,
a state of anxiety.
absolutely. And I think we oftentimes oversimplify it or fail to understand it's no different than someone eating peanuts and having no reaction and another person eating peanuts and having a very strong or even deadly reaction. Some
Right.
people's bodies just react in a very undesirable and negative way to certain substances. And we've got to be careful when we're trying new things. That's with just about everything.
Right.
Anything we put into our bodies, we need to be careful what we're trying, but especially if it's psychoactive.
So you were starting to use cannabis as an adult in finding ways that it worked for you. And then it sounds like that was pretty close to when you were starting your company Standard Wellness.
Yep.
So what came first in terms of inspiration? Was wellness something that you were already working on? Was cannabis a catalyst? Tell me maybe a little bit about the origin of that.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question. In terms of wellness, I think I've been on this ever everlasting journey of seeking wellness and self-improvement. And
Mhm.
some of that comes from me just being like a type A person in some ways. And wanting to do things right. And so in order to do that, you have to step back and see what you're doing wrong and process improve. And I think that happens in every aspect of my life, whether it's in the professional space. Sometimes I take a step back and try to figure out, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? How can I improve? Whether it's in service, like to others, how am I being empathetic and leading with empathy? Am I understanding what people's needs are? It's true for parenting. I try to really parent with an open mind. I have one daughter, and the thought with her is that nothing is the end of the world. Let's figure this out together. Let's be patient and kind with one another. And so there's just a lot of process improvement. And I think if you're introspective and you are thoughtful, that leads to wellness, quite honestly, in some ways, because you're being mindful and intentional about how you show up in the world. And so when it comes to, again, the origin point here of wellness, my wellness journey has been a long one and a
Mhm.
continued one. And I hope to God that it lasts for the rest of my life in many ways. I don't expect to ever have it down to a science, but I certainly realized that there was a point in my professional career, and this was when I was working at Conscious Capitalism, where it was really important to me that as I led, as I served, as I was in business and growing as a professional, that I leveraged whatever business I was in as as a force for good, where there was like a dedication to the people because they came first. And when I started Rooted Therapeutics, that was soon after leaving the organization Conscious Capitalism that I had been at.
An
It really
interesting phrasing of words, conscious
Conscious
capitalism.
capitalism. Yeah, and it had really driven home my commitment to how I wanted to like live my life. And so when the opportunity arose to start this sort of path in cannabis, I was like, this is an amazing industry,
Mhm.
amazing people. I saw an opportunity, and we can talk about that if you want. But I was like, I want to build a business where my philosophy is to like leverage business as a force for good, where my dedication to people and the plant and like our company and community's commitment to wellness inside of the business and environmental sustainability really guide our business practices and decision making. And so I think I just saw really cannabis as an opportunity for not just me and the people around me, but for our clients to be a plant that should be in this world respected as a safe and natural and enjoyable means to healthy living. And I think it's a supplement to other things people do in their daily lives, where it's like being mindful and just practicing mindfulness in how we communicate with people, how we treat people, taking care of our bodies, what we put into it. I am not an avid sort of exercise enthusiast, but I try to walk. Like I love
Yeah.
Pilates,
Make it
you
work for
know?
you.
Yeah, and I think everybody has to make it work for them, but I think having at the forefront or as a guiding sort of North Star, the idea that we should be well with ourselves and well with other people is really important. So I think cannabis just happens to be one part
Yeah.
of how I see the world and why I think we're now here and how we ended up here.
I'm wondering if you talked about your journey in wellness and that word, right? There's a lot in that industry. There's a lot of amazing stuff, and there's a lot of like bullshit in the wellness industry and a lot of bad spaces that people can
There
find
is.
themselves in. And I know for me, like speaking of capitalism, I had to unravel wellness from those systems, from capitalist systems, from colonialist systems. I'm wondering if your understanding of wellness has evolved on this journey.
Yeah, I would certainly say so. I think I alluded to it earlier. It's not a stagnant concept.
Right,
Wellness is going to evolve as you evolve as a human being. So unless you're not changing and you're staying stuck in a certain place, then naturally wellness will evolve with you
right.
as you become more mindful and you're conscious of what is wellness for you. At some point in my life, I'm sure that wellness looked like going out and running every day and eating greens, but it's evolved. It's how do I treat other people? How do I feel about myself on a daily basis?
Totally.
How do I take care of the people around me? Are they well? Because that's a part of my wellness. Am I feeling good about how I lead? I struggle with that sometimes. As a leader, it's really hard to get things right. And I'm putting that in big quotes.
Mm,
And when you're leading, you constantly have to change and evolve. And so, what wellness looks like for me has grown tremendously in the last several years because I'm leading a team of people who are committed to my vision and my mission and sort of the values that I've had this company adopt. But
mhm.
it's an evolutionary thing. I don't think wellness is stagnant. And I think it changes based on where you are at any point in your life and your understanding of what your needs are.
So let's talk a little bit more about standard wellness and that the company and how it includes cannabis. You know, as you were speaking, I was realizing I wouldn't have even defined cannabis as a part of my wellness a couple of years ago. And now I realize
Mm.
that it's such a big part in really more intentional ways. So tell me a little bit more about standard wellness.
So, Standard Wellness Maryland is a vertically integrated cannabis company that's located in Maryland. We have partners who are located out in Ohio, and they have operations in Ohio and Utah and Missouri. And they were an integral part of sort of us getting off the ground and pursuing licensure, and to this day remain good partners in us operationalizing here in Maryland with our business units and business lines. But basically, we're still in startup mode.
Mm.
We are majority owned by me as an African American and Latina in the space. My understanding is that we are one of one in that regard with majority
Wow.
ownership. And I'm really excited about our launch here in Maryland. I'm really, as I think, driven by commitment to wellness and a vision for inclusivity,
Mhm.
especially in this nascent sector. You know, when I started it, I saw an opportunity to further the narrative around cannabis as a wellness product, and especially in Black and Latino communities where there was this historically marginalized set of people and who had been over policed for the plant and not only using it, but also benefiting from it, the sale of it or the manufacturing of it in an economic way. And, I feel deeply driven by like authenticity. So
Mhm.
building this standard wellness business being and ensuring that it's reflective of my personal values around like purposeful profits and community engagement and servant leadership, all of these played a role into what the company is today and how we're building the business. So sometimes you just have to like do the work and be the change that you want to see. And I, for one, envision a world where cannabis is respected as a safe and natural and enjoyable means for healthy living, and I think the only way we make that happen is by making it happen.
The only way we can make that happen is by making it happen.
So that's a little bit about the business. We've got about 20 to 30-ish team members that are working on the retail and cultivation sides of the business. Processing will probably come online next year, and we're really excited about that. We are in the final stages of securing additional equity for a property that we have up in Frederick, Maryland, to purchase that and build that out for cultivation and manufacturing businesses.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah, so we're super excited about that. We're now operating in pods with a local partner, which we're excited about too, because that gets us off the ground and certainly allows us to be compliant with the state's
Mm.
requirements that we do so by the end of the year. But we're also at the same time operationalizing dispensary. And so we've got an incredible location in the very warm and bustling community of Canton, which is in downtown Baltimore. And we hope to have that launched and off the ground within the next 30 days. We'd
Oh, damn.
originally, yeah, we had a yeah, we
You're
had
like,
originally had a yeah, it's like right around that corner. We had a target of early November, then it got moved to mid, then to late. And I think like most cannabis business owners, we're finding that sort of the regulatory overlay on top of the statutory requirements for any other
Mhm.
business is just proving to be part of a complicated puzzle. And so making sure that as we build out these businesses, our compliance is really tight, which I think we started out doing and we're still doing, that our communications are really strong, that the team is in lockstep. All of these things are issues that we're navigating and trying to do so swiftly, but also carefully. And hopefully by the end of the year, you'll see some amazing grand opening pictures, Carly, or maybe we can have you
Yes.
here. But we're trying to do a lot of things at one time. And, that's where we're at. We're trying to give each other grace as we do it.
I have a friend who is teaching at a university in Maryland, and I'm completely forgetting which one, but I'm trying to plan an East Coast trip to see a few people. So I might have to reach
Take
out
us
to
up on
you.
that. Well, we would love to have you, and we would love to have you at the dispensary, even if you can't. I don't know where they are in Maryland, but you'll have to tell me, and maybe we can have you meet the team and come out. Hopefully, our dispensary is open by the time you make it here.
That'd be
Um,
so fun. I'd love to
yeah,
do some like interviewing or talking to more people on the ground.
that'd be great. And I'll have to tell you, like, our dispensary is going to be pretty amazing. I think everybody thinks that about their
Honestly, I
dispensary.
believe you.
It totally is. I mean, we are like deeply invested in making a positive impact on our community. And so we've got some amazing partnerships with local businesses, but our build out is actually also quite intentional. Like we've designed this space to be inviting and soul soothing. We've
Mm,
got a natural aesthetic with a community oriented ambiance and customer journey. And we've got like forest inspired theme, green and brown hues and natural scents to refresh the atmosphere and
I'm
calming
in. I'm
music.
so in.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a unique place. We're trying to balance obviously investment with outcomes because at the
Mm,
end of the day, it is a retail experience and people are churning and you've got to
right.
get in, you've got to sell products. But we just want to penetrate the community and the people that are coming into our store a little bit differently. We want to touch them differently and have them feel so good about their experience that they're compelled to come back. But it's not just because like we've tricked them into coming back and the numbers are reflective of that. It's really because we want them to feel like these are people that I can trust in
Mm,
here and I can relate to them and they're listening to me. And when I encounter them, I feel good about how they're talking to me and they're knowledgeable. And if they're newbies in this space, they feel like I know I can depend on this person's recommendation. And I know that if it doesn't work out, I can come back to them and they're going to honor that. So I think a big part of what we've done with this dispensary is really, again, just put the people first. So
yeah.
I'm trying to put my team members first, and hopefully they'll put our clients first so that we can have like a first rate dispensary and experience. But I think it'll be good, Carly.
I feel like a lot of us, and for good reason, more and more are talking about that importance of community, right? Like the word community, I feel like is used a lot, and again, for good reason. So I'd love to know like a little bit more about what that looks like, right? What does being in community and making sure you're catering to community and creating community around these spaces, what does that look like?
I think our mission at Standard is that we believe that health should be a source of fortitude and wellness, not
Mm,
judgment. And that's why we're here to help cannabis users everywhere of all shapes and sizes and types of people develop a positive relationship with their lifestyle choices, helping them to improve their wellness regimen and live fully. And it's certainly a mouthful, that is. But at the end of the day, we want to get rid of judgment
yeah.
and we want health to be a source of fortitude and wellness, right? And we're here to help people that are interested in cannabis develop a positive relationship with whatever they're doing. We
Mhm.
don't want them to feel like when they come into our space that we're not helpful and we're not understanding. We want them to feel good about how they're proceeding with their wellness journey. And so we're developing relationships with Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield here,
Mm,
which is an insurance provider, to talk to people about cannabis and
wow.
wellness. And I think that's very new and very different. We're working with some of our local gyms. Merritt Gym Properties is right next door. We hope to develop a wellness program with them as well. For yoga, we've got Stretch Lab in our space as well, and ensuring that people understand that there is a holistic wellness that you can pursue and maybe give them other pathways to pursue it. We're working with City of Gods, which is an urban sort of streetwear brand. They do a tremendous amount of community engagement activities. They've got art pop-ups, music pop-ups,
Fun.
poetry pop-ups. They've got, yeah, like free food giveaways for Thanksgiving. And we're trying to get the team so entrenched in the community that people understand we're a part of its fabric. And so I think that's what it looks like. Becoming a part of the community just requires understanding what the beat of the community is. We've got First Thursdays during the summer, and they're huge concerts that are on a waterfront park right next door to where we are. Like we're
Oh, that's
actually on
so
the water.
fun.
Yeah, and I think like creatives tend to lean heavily into cannabis. I think it's one of the tools that people use to unlock in a lot of ways their creativity. And sometimes just reducing stress allows our minds to move a little
Mm.
bit differently and more freely. And art is, I think, a natural extension of that in all forms, whether it's musical, whether it's interpretive, or, whether it's painting, drawing, or any form of printed art. I just think that art plays a large part of self-expression and again, wellness. And to the extent that we can engage in these various avenues in the Baltimore community, I think that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's what we're starting to do really well.
It sounds like to continue to shift those narratives around cannabis for everyone, but for people of color, and for
Mm,
reworking not only that usage, but like the shame and the history of the war on drugs. I feel like wellness and cannabis continuing to put those things together helps to really unravel some of those things.
mhm. I think it does, especially in communities of color. Black communities and Latino communities are the ones that I can speak to with some
Mhm.
sort of cultural competency here.
Mhm.
I think the reality is we're a few generations away from actually having been, in the Black community's case, brought here on a boat. As Latinos, we also immigrated here just a few generations away from most families first touch of soil here in America, right? It didn't happen 10 generations ago in America. And think for the vast majority of Latinos in this country in particular, that sort of immigration came within the last, I'd call it 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And we're talking about people who are relatively new to a place and whose experiences with cannabis have been marred by over policing and injustice and propaganda campaigns that smeared our community's use of cannabis and distribution of cannabis. And
Mhm.
now, all of a sudden, and I say all of a sudden within the last 20 years, basically some switches were flipped and everything has changed. And there are communities of people in this country that are able to completely take advantage of the fact that it's been legalized at the state level, while we have other communities, again, Black and Latino communities in particular, that I can speak to with cultural competency, who don't even want to talk about the plant,
Mm.
much less who have the appetite for getting involved in a meaningful way and participating in this industry, whether it be through advocacy, through direct investment, to participate in the economic upside of legalization. They don't want to talk about wellness
Mm.
because historically, as they were treating themselves, they were also getting locked up, right? Also, wellness is taboo in our communities. A lot of us have, I have an immigrant parent. A lot of us, we're two steps away from people who immigrated here, and they were forced to survive. We're talking about survival in many cases in these communities being paramount, not wellness. Wellness is a
Right.
luxury,
Right.
right? It's something that we certainly want to have, but we're not always being honest. I have the luxury of trying to focus on wellness because a lot of my life and the aspects of my life that matter are relatively stable.
Yeah.
Shit, there are a lot of people that don't have that stability. They can't be talking about wellness because they're fucking talking about how we're going to feed our kids.
Literally.
How are we going to get our paychecks? How are we going to get a job? We don't have a way to get a job. We don't have transportation. It's,
Where are we gonna live? What I mean,
all of that, like all of these very basic needs not being met, are at the forefront of the majority of our people of color's lives. And so when we talk about wellness, it's hard for people to get there for a number of reasons. One, because of the historic treatment of Black and brown people around cannabis. Two, because the issues that they're facing are so much more dire
yeah.
oftentimes and at the forefront of their minds isn't like, ooh, how do I be well? Can I do yoga? Can I do like that shit? They can't even fucking afford yoga and Pilates,
Right,
right?
right.
Like, or classes in that
They're
regard. You
like,
can go
that's,
on YouTube, but
you know, people are
it's a
like, that's
luxury.
cute, but
Super cute,
yeah,
super duper cute,
yep,
but it ain't, that's not paying for, that's not helping their survival. And
correct.
so I think if we can start talking to large swaths of these populations about, hey, this is actually a tool that can be used in your survival. We don't want you to overconsume, but we also want you to understand how can it be weaponized against these demons that you're battling and a part of wellness so that you can fight these things on a daily basis, overcome them, and then start thriving. That's a different conversation entirely.
Yeah,
And the only way you get there is if you have people who can talk from a place of authority, talk from a place of understanding, and who has the sensitivity and open-mindedness of understanding what are these people really dealing with.
yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily look like them, but I would say that for me, I think it's helpful. I think sometimes it, there's all, as we often say in the Black community, all Black folk ain't kinfolk. So just because people look like you doesn't mean they understand what you're going through. But oftentimes when people look like you, there are some shared experiences. And
Yeah.
so from my vantage point, being able to relate to people who look like me, I think is helpful as we navigate, all right, how do we change perceptions around cannabis, especially in these communities?
I really appreciate that these conversations are happening alongside this building of Standard Wellness Maryland because you
Hmm.
created the foundation that way. And
Hmm.
it's just so clear how different that conversation is when that's your foundation when talking about cannabis.
It is. I will tell you, Carly, I mean, it's not easy though, because you still, like, while having that at the forefront of your mind and being really clear on vision and values and mission, you still have to consider numbers and
Yeah,
profit, you know what I'm saying? And losses and liabilities and assets. And you have to understand EBITDA. You have to understand hiring, attracting, hiring, retaining these various steps within the development of your people and culture, you know, understanding sort of the necessity of strategic planning
mhm,
and planning around your people is actually quite hard. I've got to make tough decisions like who do I keep? Who can I sort of table to bring on? Do I need to furlough people? And these are all real decisions that have to be made while also saying, I value people. I put people
right.
first. And sometimes it's hard because it doesn't feel like all of those things are being reconciled. You want
Mhm.
to do right by everybody at the same time, but there's nothing about being a leader that puts people first that's easy. It may be
Mhm.
right, and you
Mhm.
might have it as your sort of true north and guiding light. But the reality is sometimes that makes it harder to make decisions because you actually do care and you do want to do the right thing.
It
If I
probably
didn't
makes it
give a
harder
shit,
more often than not
oh,
because
yeah, for sure.
the systems we're operating in are not set up for you to give a shit about other people.
No, not necessarily. No, they don't. I think sometimes it is hard. You do have to put in a little bit more elbow grease. I think of just one aspect of like our people and culture team, obviously, set of considerations and programming is benefits, like developing benefits for folks. And I was listening to one of my team members when he first joined. He's a young guy, he's got two kids, and he was like, I really am trying to have a family that has a home. And that's been a challenge. And I'm like, dag, I might not be able to pay him the salary that he's going to need, especially not in this area, to
Right.
really afford an incredible home, much less a home because they're expensive and interest
Yeah.
rates are high. But I was able to think through, well, what community partners can we work with to do home buying assistance programs? And what bank can we work with to help our team members get loans? So now we're putting together a program for her first time home buying for our staff because we've got a lot of young people, especially in the dispensary. And it's a priority for me if I'm saying I want to build this business and it's got to be conscious. And I care about community empowerment. That's one of my values. Purpose driven profits are two. Universal respect is the first one. I've got to think about what do these people need? And that's one of those programs, but I can't do that in my sleep. Like I have
Right.
to tack that on to the end of the day or the forefront of my day on top of everything else. So
Right.
it is not, I think there actually is a burden of civility and care that people often overlook when they look at leaders. And yes, it can be natural. And yes, it can be genuine and authentic to who you are, but it's still a burden at times. And people don't understand, like going into meetings as a woman in particular, like I got to keep a calm
Mm,
that's different. There's an expectation around how I speak to people that's different. And the level of consideration that I should have versus perhaps a man should have, the expectations are different. And there's a burden associated with that shit. It's not like it is not natural to have a different set of expectations on you than other people. And it's quite a bit to think through sometimes and to
yeah.
navigate. So I don't know. I feel like I took us off topic, Cabby.
No, you absolutely did. I'm asking questions. Given all that and
Mm-hmm,
given our conversations around wellness and how much shit there is to do good, like how much
mm-hmm,
work it is to do good. And I do think
mm-hmm,
you're doing such good, and it's why I wanted to talk to you. But I'm curious what then your personal wellness looks like. How are you taking care of yourself
mm.
while doing this?
Yeah. I'm not doing a great job. I'm working
Yeah,
on that.
that's a fair answer.
I've got a pretty good team that I'd say a pretty great team. I wouldn't say pretty good, pretty great team. And they do a pretty good job of trying to help me remember that I've got to take care of myself in this process. So a lot of times during the day, I forget to eat. I mean, sometimes I'm working so much, I don't go to the bathroom, right? Like I don't take
Yeah.
bathroom breaks. I'm just trying to get through all of these to-dos and these 100 list of to-dos that I have every single day. And it's a challenge because if I don't get them done, then the next day they're going to be there. And there are
Yeah.
other things that are codependent on my work. So I do have, I think, great accountability partners inside of the business who are like, Christina, gotta eat, Christina, bathroom breaks. And that seems small, but it's pretty important.
Yeah.
I have like a internal rule for myself as it relates to my kid. Like I pick her
Mm,
up from school 50% of time, maybe a little less, 30 to 50%, but I take her to school every day. So we have conversations in our car about her readiness for the day and how she feels. And at the end of the day, we talk and I do not miss any of her games. So
yeah.
from August through the fall, through the winter, through the spring, and into June in the summer, I make every single volleyball game that my kid has. And come hell or high water, basically, I'm there. Unless there's like a grand opening event, right? Or
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
I make every game and I take her to and from practice. She's got practices 8 to 10 p.m., 3 nights a week, on top of individual training. There's just a commitment that's there. And it's not to volleyball, it's really to my kid, Vivian,
Yeah.
and her knowing, hey, all of this stuff is important, but you're like way more important. So I'm going to be here with you every step of the way, even if I'm exhausted. At the end of every day, I was talking to somebody about this weekend. I take baths every night,
Oh,
as my wind down. I use these little magic bath salts. They're incredible. And they help my body release tension, and the heat helps my mind drain as well and just relax. And I do say prayers in the evening. In the morning, I start my day off with tea most of the time. It's my little ritual to ease into the day. I'm not starving. I don't go straight for sugar and have a crazy sugar rush in the morning. I mean, those aren't like big things, but they are rituals. I love Pilates. My Pilates studio closed, Carly. So
oh no.
yeah, the one that I really like closed. Then I went to another one that's local and they have a horrible parking lot. So I'm like, I cannot go there because that's stressful for me. Their
Hmm.
parking lot is stressful. So I'm waiting on this new one by my house to open. But they too seem to be having issues with permitting and and inspections like us. So it's good to know we're all in it together. Yeah, but they should be opening in the next month or so. And so I'll be reintegrating Pilates into my daily routine. And 5 days a week, I would like to do that. So those are small things, but the bath time and the time with my kid are like really meaningful for me. It's hard when you're starting a business, Carly, because you're so distant from your friends. I have the benefit of my mother living with us to help me, and she's amazing. Like, for sure, if she wasn't there, I would not be where I am today at all in any way. She helps me do everything with my daughter. She's supportive of the business and how I'm moving too. But my friends, though, I don't have them anywhere near me. Like, they can't relate necessarily. It's hard to make time with them. It's hard to allocate time. I do morning walks on Saturdays with friends every single Saturday at 9:30.
That's
Um,
lovely.
yeah, I'm in a walking club, but it sounds very old ladyish now that I say that out
No, I
loud
was
and not
like,
very
should I
cool.
start a walking club? That sounds amazing.
It's actually very good. The guy that starts it, his name is Silas, and he and I went to college together. He's an amazing person. He's an avid reader and thinker, another person
Mhm.
that is really committed to wellness and sort of
Mhm.
his personal evolution and growth. But I miss my friends. I
Yeah.
really miss that community. I would just say it's hard because I do think a lot of our wellness comes from being in community with others. And so right now it's replaced with my work community, which is a great group of people, but the stuff that we're
It's
doing is
different.
stressful. So I'm looking forward, yeah, to getting a little bit further along in this journey so that that blossoms differently and feels great. But it's tough work. I definitely don't have the balance. I sure as hell don't look to me as an example. I'm working on it and
Yeah.
I'm mindful of the fact that I don't have it. And I'm recommitting every day, like, okay, I can't give this up. I've got to do this to ensure that I am healthy. And what doesn't work, I've got to eliminate that. So I'm good about that. I eat pretty decently, but I'm in no form or fashion like the example of perfection. That's for sure.
But I think that's so important because that's so many of our realities too,
It
right?
is.
Where it feels like everyone else how somehow has it figured out in a different way. And then you realize like, ooh, we all struggling.
Yeah. And they don't have their shit together either.
But
You
barely
know,
anybody does.
we don't, I don't know. The thing is, I don't get a chance to talk to people right now too often. So I don't know what people have going on, but I do know that nobody has this down to a science. And I think the only thing you can do is make a real intentional effort to just get better.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. Like, just process improve as much as you can. And if you like baths, I take it's called Village Naturals Therapy nighttime
Ooh,
mineral bath salts.
shout
You know,
out.
yeah, get your little Village Naturals Therapy concentrated bath salts and go to work at night. If it's
Mhm.
working out, make time for that in the morning. Whatever suits you for easing your mind and granting yourself some relief. I think that's important. I think also having a gracious, grateful, and grace-filled attitude is important. Like
Yeah.
allowing people to make mistakes and giving them grace, giving yourself grace to make mistakes,
Yeah.
space to make mistakes too is important.
That
I
took me
think
a
that,
long time. I still sometimes have to remind myself to be like, you would be giving somebody else so much more space for this moment than you're giving yourself.
yeah, I mean, that's a work in progress. I try to do that too. And there's a balance you have to strike there too, right? Because you need to be accountable, you need to hold other people accountable. All of this is a constant recalibration
Hmm.
of what works. And I think that's thematically wellness, right? Like you have to constantly recalibrate on your journey. Like there's no direct path and it's not going to be straight and it's going to be twists and turns and you might have to go on a different path. And like all of those things are part of the journey.
I appreciate you sharing all of that too, because I think that only you know your experience and what you're feeling, obviously, but from what you're sharing, that's a pretty great list of things that you are being intentional about, and baths and time with your daughter. And as someone who has a mom, when I was in sports and I was younger and in volleyball and softball,
Mm.
and she never missed a game, especially my senior year. And it didn't hit me till later how important and valuable and grateful I am for that. So it's pretty incredible that you're doing that because it's appreciated.
Well, thanks. I received that. Right now, I'm just getting told, bring me snacks, bring me
I
food.
know
Don't forget
I
to
didn't want to
smile.
assume, but I'm like, I don't know how old your daughter is, but I didn't
Oh my God.
at this point
She's
until a
15.
little bit. Oh, okay, there it is. I didn't get there then.
Yeah, no, she's a pretty grateful kid. Like she
Hmm.
really is. She tells me that actually all the time. She's very grateful. I'm designing her team gear right now, like her
Oh,
extra gear, and she wants this Venom themed sweatshirt. It's so elaborate. I don't know how the hell we're gonna make this work, but I'm gonna figure it out for her. But she does really appreciate me being there for her and supporting her team. She does think it's cool.
Yeah.
And of course, she's got a mom who's in cannabis and weed. In her mind, she's like, this is dope
Hey.
as hell. Yeah, she's in a private Catholic prep school, and
Oh
I
shit.
try to I try to get all of the stickers from everything I go to, everybody's promo stickers, and then she has them on all of her books, on all of her computer, like front and back, like
Oh my gosh,
there's
I
just
knew I
weed
liked you
everywhere.
instantly, Christina.
Oh my God. So I'm probably not gonna get the best parent award at her Catholic high school, but I will tell you, I know that her friends love me, and I know that she does too. That's really
Yeah.
important. We have a really good relationship. I think just giving her room to, again, just being a gracious and graceful parent. I think that's helped me in sort of leadership and vice versa. Like in leadership, I can't be going crazy in the workplace. I can't do that with my kid either. You have to be
Right.
patient and give people room to tell you the truth and room to improve. So it's a constant journey, Carly, I'll say, but my kid is a big part of it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your time with me. Do you have anything else that you want to share with listeners that I haven't given you space to do?
I would just tell them I really appreciate everybody listening. If there's something that I can do to be supportive of people, I'm here to do it and be it. I certainly don't have a whole lot of time, but if they want to connect with me, they can connect on Instagram and it's underscore Canacris, or on LinkedIn. It's like Christina B. Johnson. I guess when you publish it, you can share that too, Carly. I would just say for anybody that's on a wellness journey, an entrepreneurial journey, a parenting journey, the best thing you can do is to give yourself grace and be absolutely relentless with your goals. Just
Mm.
put your one foot in front of another and keep stepping towards the light and what you believe in and where you can get. Again, even as a parent, stick to what's in your soul and your spirit because that really is your guiding light. And just one foot in front of the other. Like you ain't got to run. You don't even have to jog. You just have to keep moving forward. So that's what I would leave everybody with. And thank you for your time, Carly. Thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, this was great, Christina. Thank you so much. I really do hope that I get to meet you in person. And if I'm out there and I can come see the dispensary, that would be incredible.
We love it. Just let us know. We'd be happy to host you and have you.
Thanks for listening to an episode of Consciously Cannabis. If you're not ready for this episode to be over, don't worry. Every Consciously Cannabis episode has bonus content. Sometimes guests and I will smoke together. Maybe you'll see some of my friends and I toke up. Who knows? Go to patreon.com/consciouslycarly and get all the bonus content. And thank you so much for listening to this new series. If you enjoyed it, remember to hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Share it with a friend. Tell someone you know. Anything helps, and I so appreciate it. See you next time.